What is up, guys? Thank you guys a ton for tuning into this video. Let's get right into it. So right off the bat, we need to ask, what's going on in Toronto? The Raptors started off this season as a 2 seed and they dropped to a 5 seed, but with yesterday's win against the Hornets, they are now the 4 seed again. But everybody expected them to be the 2 seed, and they haven't really lived up to that. They were the 2 seed at the beginning of the season, but now the Celtics are, and the Wizards are ahead of them. Last season, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals and even won 2 games on the Cavs in the Eastern Conference Finals. But this season, they do not look like the same team, and I think a big part of that is their loss of Bismack Biyombo. Now, Dwayne Casey claims to be a defensive coach, but this season so far, they haven't really been a solid defensive team. They've lost 10 of their last 15 games, and in these last 15 games, they've allowed 100 plus points in 13 of these games. Now, this wouldn't usually be a problem, but if you're a defensive-minded team that isn't scoring 120 points a game like the Warriors, then allowing 100 points almost every game is going to end up being a problem, and you probably won't win as many games. Jonas Valanciunas, their center, is weak defensively. He is an offensive-minded post, and he's just too slow to keep up. And honestly, I think that he could be better defensively, but he just isn't. Also, another thing that you have to consider is injuries. They haven't had any huge injuries, but they have been banged up. And over time, these small injuries, they do affect a team, obviously, as we see with the Raptors dropping from a 2 seed to a 5 seed and now a 4 seed. But I think that if you haven't been watching NBA news lately, the Raptors traded Terrence Ross in a first-round pick for Serge Ibaka. Do I think this was a good trade? I think that it was, and I'm sad to say this because I am a Raptors fan and I love T. Ross. But what they needed was a defensive presence in the paint, and I think Serge Ibaka provides that. He hasn't been as good since he was in OKC, but he is still a very good defensive player, and I think that he can be very good for the Raptors. Now, another thing is the bench production in Toronto isn't as good as it used to be. They lost Lou Williams, 6th Man of the Year, James Johnson. They lost Amir Johnson. They lost Grievous Vasquez. They've just lost a lot of players over the past couple of years that were strong bench presence for them. And now with their loss of Terrence Ross, I'm not sure how this might affect them. But the trade for Ibaka, I still think it was worth it because they do strongly need a defensive presence. Another thing that we need to look at is the stars need to step up. DeMar DeRozan started off the season great, but since then he's still putting up good numbers, but they aren't great. Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan need to take control and be the leaders that Dwayne Casey treats them like they are. And they also need more bench production. They need their players to step up because they've lost a lot of bench players, so they need the bench players that they do have to step up. And I think that if they do, they will win more games. And they should be legitimate contenders for the East if they're at full health and if all the players are doing their job. Once Serge Ibaka meshes into the system, I think that they will be a much better team, and I think that they can be legitimate contenders in the East. It might be a little biased, but I do think that they are better than the Celtics and the Wizards. I think that Kyle Lowry is underrated, even though most people consider him one of the best point guards. A lot of people hate on him, but I think he is one of the best, and I think if him and DeMar DeRozan can step up and Serge Ibaka can mess into the system, they will have a great future. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks.